Hello everybody, today we're going to talk about Bethesda's Game Engine again and why people shouldn't be afraid. And I'm going to start by utterly destroying the argument that they need to get a new engine. Let's start by just explaining the differences between this engine and everybody else's. This has been developed from the Gyro engine over a matter of decades. It's taken decades to add the features to it that it's got now. It would take decades more to add the same features to a new engine. So you'd be talking probably 2042 before they could actually even make a game again. That's 20 years. They've already left it at 10 to update this for Starfield. And I reckon they have been updating it. The amount of differences in Starfield from Oblivion are so big it would take about 10 years for them to start getting the game engine up to scratch for a completely different game. So that sounds about right to me. Now, if you were to actually look at the other games like Unreal and stuff like that, they don't do half of the things this engine does. And if Bethesda say did switch to Unreal and then Epic decided we're not doing the Unreal engine anymore in 5 years time, all of that work gets scrapped. Bethesda are suddenly having to find another new engine and start all over again. It would be another 20 years before they got started. And now we've got mods. Now, have you seen Bethesda? I mean, you ever worked on the Unreal Engine? Because I have. Have you ever worked on any other middleware? Because I have. And it's not as easy to use as a creation kit. The creation kit opens doors that allows anybody, even you guys, to make mods. It is easy to use, it is extremely powerful, you get full access to everything in the game. And it's not hard. I mean, quest stuff might take a lot of time, but you can learn that. You could do that. Same with scripting, you could do that. Most of the things in the game are accessible to me and you. That isn't true in other engines. In other engines, you need to have access to unlimited resources, to all kinds of stuff. Things are much bigger, much more difficult. So the first thing you would lose if you change the engine is the modding scene we've got today. That would be dead and gone. Because most people wouldn't be able to make mods for the new game on the new engine. So if you wanted to change it, first thing you need to accept, it's going to be a long time before they can get a game out with a new engine because of what they'd have to port across. You might be up to Morrowind standards when they did make a game, not Skyrim standards, and most of the mods would be gone. Because whilst you can make mods for other engines, it requires a lot more skill. So turning to the editor now, this is the edit with Skyrim loaded. And this is the object window. Now this is where I've got my monitor so I can actually just have these all open at the same time. Comes in very handy when you can do this. Right, let's start with actors. These are NPCs. You try having access to NPCs and stuff in Unreal Engine. It's not rigged up for that. You can do it, but it won't be the same. It's a lot more difficult. In this, all I've got to do is click that, click edit or duplicate and start editing the duplicate. That's it. And then I get access to this. And I can tell it if it's unique, whether it respawns, give it a name, give it a script, give it its stats, factions, relationships, keywords, AI data, AI packages. I could just click in there, click on new, give it a new package. Packages are what controls where it walks, how it goes, what it does, conditions, beginning, end, things like that. I mean here it tells you it's the clean marker, or counter lean marker. So this is the bartender in Solitude, or one of them, fishmonger, sorry. So, and idle animations, that's what they do when they stand still. It's all part of this. That's part of the creation kit engine that people think is out of date. You don't get that anywhere else. That is cutting edge stuff, right? Yet people think it needs replacing with something that can't support this kind of thing, right? Now you can get this in almost any other engine, but you've got to work a lot harder to do it. You can't just right click and select new. And in order to do that in another engine, it requires a lot of work from Bethesda, a lot of work. Now, if we go to perks, Alchemist 20. This is exactly what you get when you have Alchemist 20 perk. Again, it's there, it's editable. It's available in the creation kit engine straight away. Right? Now if we go down to, you've got heads, classes, blade. Here we can change the stats of all the blades. Simply change them numbers and we can make the blades super hard or really weak. Rebalance the entire game by editing those. Right, if we go down even further, there's the AI packages that I just mentioned. That's where they're really kept. There is quests. These are your quests. Mages Guild, Mages Guild 7. I know you're thinking there's no Mages Guild, but they're still calling it Mages Guild. But there's the quests for it right there. You can edit these. Create scenes, dialogue. Even add scripts at the end that change everything how it works and the variables and whatnot. All easy done, all supported by this engine. And don't worry, I'm going to get to the changes. Right? Now armour. Now you could drop these armours in the real world and it'd appear on the floor. Don't take that for granted. That's one of the features you'd lose on certain engines. Right? Being able to drop things on the floor and pick it up later. Simple little things like that. You think it's out of date? You try it. Try it in some of the games. See how many games would allow you to simply drop things and still pick it up. So you've got armour here. Now in this armour it tells you what part of the body it goes on. You name another engine that allows you to do that. Right? It says fair armour. It says the value. You've got the armour rating here. It's all there. You can change it all. It's actually, if I can find it, there, this here, that's the actual model and NIF. I can change that, add my own, replace all bandit armour with my own armour if I want, by editing that. Simply by clicking edit there and choosing a different NIF file. That's part of the creation kit engine. If we go down, right, weapons, exactly the same situation here. Except for we can set up how powerful they are, what they do, the type of enchantments, all from one page. Couldn't be easier. We go down a bit further. I've got to try and keep this short. Spells. Ability spells. That's not ability. Let's go for a normal spell. Banish Deirdre. Ta-da! That's in the engine as well. This is the engine people think is out of date. This is one of the features you're losing. Right? Because Unreal doesn't come naturally with spells. You know, this is kind of features you've got to add. The creation kit engine is unique to the Elder Scrolls. It is why the Elder Scrolls is as good as it is. Without it, you're looking at playing another Witcher game. Simple as that. Right? And if we go down here, we've got all kinds of stuff. But let's find something interesting. Explosions and special effects. Yes, you can edit the explosions and special effects. If we go down even further, image space. You ever noticed how certain games have that kind of really grey or blue or green feel, you know, when you look at a scene? That's image space. You can literally edit. Here's the Falmor one. It gives it slightly blue. If I could change that to green right now, and every Falmor image space that uses that would look green. In fact, I can make a mod right now that adjusts all of the lighting to make it even more vibrant, as in more colourful, or give it a hint of something. In fact, if you wanted to change Fallout to be less grey, that's how you do it. Again, part of the creation kit engine. Part of the power of an engine people think is out of date. And that, by the way, is a new Skyrim feature, if I remember right. That was introduced for Skyrim. In fact, I can't remember it being in... it might have been Fallout, I can't remember, but it was a new feature anyway. That was one of the upgrades they made. Lighting templates, right there. An effort to consolidate lighting and make it a little bit more standardised. Shrines. All of these. Now that one's got a script there, right? Click on properties, we can see it. See blessing, message, spell. It does all of these. It adds the spell, alter killer of spell, and casts it. If I right click and I go to edit source, it might not show. It does show me, good. And there it is. Again, very powerful system this is. Very powerful. And if you go down to containers, the humble container. This is the most RPGs have. Now, if you go down to say normal container, merchant container, what people like to cheat and get access to, there you go, that's what's in it. The chances of it appearing. You count the number of items that would appear in it. A lot of detail. Clicking on a chest is all most games do. But this is only the start of it for the creation kit. I mean, literally only starting doors. You can set doors, add scripts to doors. And there's a trap door, right? You can have a script there that teleports the player someplace else. In fact, anything you can put in a script can be added there. Activating the door would activate the script would cause the effect. You can have it spawn 1,000 bad guys simply by clicking on a door. That's a very powerful feature. Very powerful. Adding a script that can do that kind of thing, that takes some doing. That's not an easy thing to do. Again, more clutter. Some of the way these are, and flora. You know, mushrooms you can pick. Don't take it for granted, because that's one of the things you'd be losing if you wanted to change the engine. Right? This requires a lot of work. Each one of those requires separate model making, with code to interact with it, and code to tell it what kind of thing you were picking up. So in this case, you'd be picking up an ingredient. You'd have to know how to handle the ingredient. These other engines don't get made with that in mind. They get made with something else in mind. And the chances are they'd have to rebuild it every time there was an update in some engines. So every time they updated the engine, all of this would have to be redone. Right? Not all the time. Some engines are a bit more, are better than that, but most of the time. And Unity, that gets rather hot. You might find your system overheating when you're playing the game. This is a rather cool engine, and it's limited to 60 frames per second usually, so that's why it's cool. So even if you've got a massive graphics card, 60 frames per second is what you get, because 60 frames per second is all most humans would notice. That's the reality, by the way, of frames per second. Furniture. That ain't just a bed. That's not anything, is it? Right? That there is something the player can sleep on, and it's got an idle animation there that tells the player how to get into the bed and how to lie on the bed. So that's not just a static object. These are things that can actually be used by NPCs. A lot of games have static objects that have no use, they're just eye candy. But most things in the Elder Scrolls do have a use. They're not just eye candy. Even the chairs, you see, how to sit on. See, this one's clearly designed to be put at a table. But you can see, idle animations. Idle animations themselves are a work of genius. Now this, it's not only when you get near the bottom, you get near the static stuff that has no purpose, other than to look pretty. All of this is stuff that can't really be moved, taken or dealt with. It just stays. You know? And even then, physics apply to some of it. You know, some of it can be blown around by physics. Factions. So I haven't mentioned it. Factions. Most important feature of the Elder Scrolls determines who's going to attack you and who doesn't. But anyway, you've got books as well. Do these books do anything? If it does, stick a script in it. Add a power. So reading the book executes a script, and you get a bonus on your stats. Right? But here's all the books. It adds all the lore to the game. You could write one yourself. Easy peasy. Outfits. This is where they string various kits together to make an outfit. So you can easily equip a character with all the same armour simply by giving him an outfit. You know? Potions. Again, you can make your own. Right click, done. Nothing complicated about it. This is the engine people complain about. Now this is the area where you start seeing Unreal on that lot. The Unreal side of things, because Unreal does mostly this, right? It's mostly world creation. Everything else is added later. But if I was to click on that and I was to scroll out, see, this is a dungeon. These are the trigger boxes I kept telling people about that are a bit buggy, because they too can have scripts. And they don't always work. But if we click on the level here, right, you get the lighting. Remember what I said? Lighting template there. Interior, zone, ambient. There you've got acoustic image space, that's the sound, or acoustic space. Music type, it's all there. The fog, anything you need. It's very powerful. That is already included in the actual level. You know, that's not something you've got to manually add. There's an interface specially for it to let you set everything up. And what I was saying earlier about image spaces, it's right there. You can see it literally right here. And I could change that. If I change that now to something else, the entire level would change. Well, it would in the game anyway. Let's cancel that. But you just haven't actually edited anything here, but it still marks it as edited in the game. So much for the dirty edits there. Because if you don't edit anything, that star should never appear here, and it does. All you've got to do is look at it. That's the thing that people that don't do much modding that talk about dirty edits never really understood. Anyway, wilderness location. Let's go and look on the outside. And let's go to Solitude World. There we go, and there's Solitude. Recognise it? This is what it actually looks like. And I can't even remember how you use these keys now. But this is how you make locations. All in the game, already. Now, what have they done to update it? Well, they've added image spaces. They've added idle animations. Good ones. Ones that make things look alive. They've made it so you can walk around a pub and it feels like it's a real pub. It hasn't required unique stuff to be set up just for that one location. You can make that time and time again because it's all pre-configured in this. You see, one of the reasons why Bethesda are able to make detailed worlds is because they did pre-configure it in the editor. So even their own developers can just drag and drop what they need and know that is it, it's done. They don't have to drag and drop an NPC, type in the code for it, type in the thing for it and do everything manually. It's all done. And they just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. It keeps getting better and better and better. This engine, people think it's the same engine. It might be the same engine as the Gyro engine they started with. But it's been massively updated in every possible way since then, including the nav mesh. You know, that has been changed dramatically since the early days. Every aspect of this has been modified. Factions do a lot more now. Magic does a lot more now. Special effects are a lot better now. World spaces are better. Image spaces are better. Every aspect of this has been changed and updated over the years. I've had to get used to these changes every time I mod a new game. And I can tell you now, it's a miracle they managed to get this far with this engine, because a lot of other engines look dated after 5 years. These still look fairly decent now after 20. So you want to think about that, right? Because people who don't mod are saying these things, and quite frankly, they really don't know what they're talking about. On these kind of things, the detail is everything, and that is full of detail, full of rich detail that any player can mess about with and make a mod with, which Bethesda used to make massive worlds. See, there's a reason why other companies don't make massive worlds. It's because they've got to do things manually. They don't have it all pre-configured and set up. They've got to literally manually add these features every time they make a new game. They change the engine, they've got to start again. Bethesda's genius here was they didn't have to start again. They just work on the old engine and update it. I mean, make no mistake, that engine there is light years better than the Oblivion engine. Light years better. It's not the same engine. It's the same engine in respect it was developed from the same engine, but it's not the same engine. If you put Oblivion on Skyrim, it would look different. This is why so many of these big teams are trying to make Morrow Oblivion and things like that, because the next engine up is a vast improvement over the previous one. You just look at the attacks and how combat works in Morrowind and how it works in Skyrim or Fallout. Massively different. Massively different. These are the kind of problems that people tend to just ignore. But they are improvements. Imagine a game that you can use shouts and stuff and attack dragons and it make it work. Or where they can just modify the engine a little bit and have things fly when it wouldn't fly before. And have you ride dragons and fly spaceships. I mean, make no mistake, it would take about 20 years to get any new engine up to this standard. And in the meantime, you'd be playing a game like Morrowind again. Right? You'd be playing a game with less features and complaining that it isn't as good as Skyrim. Because it takes a long time to get to the point where games are as good as Skyrim. They don't just happen the second you change to a new game engine. And this is the point people need to remember. This game has been custom built for Bethesda's games. It allows them to make massive world spaces